Right, I think we're live. Hi everyone, welcome to the 9th edition of Spamhaus Deliverability Live. If you don't know me already, I'm Abby. I'm in the marketing team at Spamhaus. I think we're live. Hi everyone, welcome to the 9th edition of... Start again. It was bound to happen. 9th edition, let's go. We were just talking before this that something always goes wrong, and there we have it. No, but I'm really excited today. As you can see, I'm joined by these two wonderful ladies with a huge amount of deliverability experience. I think many of you will already know their faces, but we have Melinda Plemmel, who is Enhanced Services Specialist at Spamhaus Technology. And we're also joined by Lauren Mayer, Chief Marketing Officer at Socket Labs. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you both doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we're off to a great start.
Aren't we? Aren't we? I'm not going to waste any more time because we've only got 15 minutes. So let's get to the good stuff and over to you guys. I'll turn my camera off.
Thank you, Abby. Really appreciate it. Recently I reached out to Lauren and stuff because, I keep pondering some questions, about ESPs and how they really manage keeping their customers off of block lists. And one of the things, we know is email is still widely used for direct communications globally. And we know that most senders, most companies really do rely on email service providers for, several reasons. They offer efficiency, reliability, optimize deliverability, and ensure compliance and security. But there is one thing that I noticed, since I left the sender side and have moved over into the Spamhaus side of the world, is I see that not all ESPs are created equal. While some have been really industry leaders for years, setting high standards, often, others struggle to really be effective to manage their email programs and really help their customers ensure some good deliverability and keeping their clients off a block list. So I did reach out to Lauren, and I know, Lauren, you have worked in this space for a while now, and I know you've seen many types of senders, and you've been in many different situations to really help senders move in the right direction. And outside of best practice, we talk about best practices a lot, but outside of best practices, which we all know and we're experts in this space, what would you say are the top jobs that every ESP should be doing to help their clients get off to the right start and really ultimately keep them off of block lists?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Mel. Well, there are so many jobs, and I know you know that, but I think, the picture that most people have when it comes to like what people are doing in ESPs is really just kind of like answering questions, fixing deliverability issues, maybe, calling the bat phone at Spamhaus every once in a while. But I think that's kind of like about
Doesn't
it.
exist.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think, there's just so much more that ESP folks are doing, right? They're helping to grow the business by ensuring that those provisioning and onboarding processes are giving every single new sign up a great experience, which of course includes reaching the inbox. And I think it's really important because those are those first couple of sends that are going to determine if that sender is going to become a customer or if they're going to go find another ESP that maybe has a little bit of a better experience on the way in the door. At the same time, I think, they need to focus on preventing spammers from sneaking into the platform and sending spam or phish. That's going to damage the ESP's reputation, potentially their sender reputation, but also their reputation with organizations like MOG. So, they're also working to protect their customers and their network through policy enforcement, customer education, and honestly, just like a boatload of performance monitoring every day. I would keep going, but we only have 15 minutes today. So I'm going to stop there. The key really is to consider how all of the jobs that are being done to help our customers really map to success for those customers, but also for your ESP.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said is like, for me personally, I think one of the most important things a sender can do is really get off to the right foot, right? Like there's that growing the business. Everybody wants to grow their business. Can you kind of elaborate on how you help those folks get off to the right start and really help grow the business?
Yeah, I think we can definitely help through education, and that's something we do all the time, best practices, right? But I think there's an aspect of kind of providing tooling that makes not only performance monitoring easier, but also segmentation, list management, those kind of essential things that email senders need to do, right? I think unfortunately, there's a lot of ESPs who normally don't have control over the quality of the list that's coming in. They just really need to focus on kind of what happens after that. So we could talk about requiring permission or authenticating, but I think really if you can authenticate right out of the gate, right, like this isn't going to be super exciting to your leadership team because they care about that like sign up to send rate, and that's going to be a little harder if you're authenticating first. But these folks are not going to double back and do this if you don't require it before that most important step that they want to do, which is sending, right? So I think it's really important for us to kind of remember that and just, sort of make them play by the rules, even if they don't want to. But, really, I think the most important recommendation that I want to share today is just trying to, understand what it's like to be your customer. I think you want to set expectations, but also the recommendations that they're giving accordingly. And what I mean by that really is, like what things do they know how to do and do well, such as maybe like building their list, creating their content, scheduling those emails. But what things do they struggle with? For example, maybe, setting up authentication. For most people, it's a total ice cream headache. So is your platform making it easier for them, or is it just making it really hard and kind of just intimidating to send email? I think customers are also struggling with identifying issues before the crash happens. They either don't know how to turn things around, or they've missed the warning signs that are happening early entirely. Like they don't even know where those are happening. So when those fire alarms go off, somebody is going to start complaining, right? And the solution seems so simple in our deliverability lizard brains. Like I think, there's changes that we recommend, but they are not actually simple for the people that we're sending those to, right? For example, we all know that warm-up's a pain in the butt, right? We give these beautiful warm-up plans to customers and they don't follow them. We're frustrated, but so are they, I think, because the tooling that we're providing with our platform doesn't always make it easy for them to even follow that plan, right? Simple for us is actually super tedious. It's manual, it's time consuming, or maybe that requires help from like another team, maybe development team, who's going to require a ticket and time to do that ticket and time to work on the ticket, all those things, right? So all of this is really meant to say, like, when you're giving those recommendations to senders, like consider what it actually is going to take for them to make that change, and make sure that you're suggesting things that are necessary, that are relevant to that sender's business and to the email goals that they're doing. Like we really need to make these realistic. Otherwise, I think just, everyone's going to continue to just get frustrated. That customer is probably going to churn, right? Which is not good for your business. It's honestly just a waste of time. So really just monitoring your customers' email performance is why it's really important, so that you can kind of just keep them on the rails, right? Guide them along the way.
Yeah, you'd mentioned monitoring, utilizing tools and really like kind of helping to guide customers in the right direction, with some of these really complex, ideas that are out there, and not a lot of people understand that.
Yeah.
One thing that I've always like really, really pushed for, and I think this is key to a lot of success, is truly helping to educate folks, right? Like there is a lot to understand in this industry. And not everybody understands all of the best practices out there. I mean, they've been out there for years, but there's still a handful of folks that maybe don't always understand all of that. Like, how do you help folks with that and really get them to educate and to understand what they have in their hands and how to utilize that best?
Yeah, I mean, some people never change until they kind of sort of have that like life reckoning moment where they decide to start eating healthy or exercising for the first time in 10 years, not from personal experience. But like I think sometimes you can get them moving simply by just kind of beating the drum, repeating those expectations and requirements often. But you really need to make it clear what's going to happen if you don't change, which I think is kind of challenging for us when we're sitting in this seat. But if you can't keep them moving, I think it's time for you to follow through, right? You've already told them a bunch of times what's going to happen if they don't remain compliant. So you need to take action with whatever those consequences are going to be. So if that's a rate limit, if it's moving them to a lower reputation-based pool, whatever that might be, you just got to make sure that you communicate the required next steps and timelines for resolution, so that you can get that customer sending right instead of, churning. And I think, the best case scenario here is when you can kind of build, sort of data-driven guidance, or, send them guidance, just through a manual report that you create. But it's great when it's the actions directly within the app, right? If you've got those tool tips, those prompts, they're super wonderful. particularly when they're backed by data, so that you really have some proof when you're taking that to a customer, right? If a center has a problem with engagement and they're going to the spam folder, don't just tell them to target those opener clickers within the last 90 days. Show them. You got to show them this, right? Use their data to explain exactly what that problem means for their email program. We're actually having a release soon that's going to kind of show like what your expected recipient count would be, and then also what your actual recipient count reached, right? And so you can kind of see that delta. You could send that to a customer and be like, you can actually be reaching like 60% more recipients at Gmail if you make this change that we've been recommending for kind of a while. So I think that's, the recommendations need to stand, but it's education. It's education. It's really, why is this important? But make it super relevant with data. Again, don't provide things to them unless they're relevant. I think that the proof's in the pudding, essentially, right?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think, that's such a pivotal moment in this industry, right? It's like for a really long time, we knew there were best practices. We knew these are the things you need to do to be better, but we didn't always have the tools or the data to back that. And I think that is huge in helping, anybody move that needle, to especially, providing that information to, the senior management that don't live inside of our world every single day. And so having tools in place, having monitoring in place, having the right people in place seem to always be key to really that success. And so just, I know that you mentioned data, and I know you talked a little bit about that, but like, have you had some, like, what were some of the real successes, like when, struggling with some folks? I think that's interesting to, like, put what we're saying to an actual event that we've experienced. I know I've had some, I know you've had some, but like, when was that aha moment for folks, and that really like did make that difference for people?
Yeah. So I think that's, for me, it's funny because I've sat in that seat. I sat in that seat for many years. And, I was the one who was hardcore, like, why aren't they listening to us? We had that great call. We told them to do the changes. They said they'd do it. And then now they're saying that they can't do it. Like, what's that about? What's going on? So I think it's, when we leave the technology, the data, the monitoring aside, I think, the changes that we're recommending, particularly those bigger ones, might require approval from someone who's above the person that you're working for, right? So like, you really need to kind of figure out, how this impacts the business, because they're going to be making their decision based on that, right? How does this impact the business, right? They want to know how much work and time this is going to take. They want to know how many people, resources, or maybe how much budget's going to be required. They want to know specifically who's going to do the work internally, and then what would be deprioritized from that person's plate. So then you're kind of doing a bit of like horse trading between all these things, right? Honestly, I think the end goal that they're going to be asking is sort of like, is this change really worth making, right? And yet, yes, they are absolutely asking that. So stop shaking your heads, folks, right? I think, they're really trying to assess that business impact. So they really need to understand how the change that you're recommending is going to benefit the company, and also kind of what those steps are going to be. And I think that's where, like, we oftentimes just are like, here's the plan, do it. Why aren't you doing it? But I think if we can lay out kind of multiple options to kind of show them how they can solve their issue, but keeping in mind that they're going to have to do some horse trading, right? They're going to have to prioritize that project over other things that they've already had planned to help the company achieve its goals. And if this is one that's out of left field because it's a deliverability issue that they weren't planning for, they gotta slide that in somehow. So I think it's, really the aha moment for me was kind of getting outside of the deliverability bubble of like, what's the ideal world? What do we think you should do? And really getting into like understanding that company's business, not just what their sender reputation is, and kind of trying to kind of marry the two, right? Like, how can we help you achieve the goal of reaching the inbox and kind of, making money from email, but also not just completely reworking your program and asking for 6 months of development time, because you're not going to get that, right? So I think that's the important thing, is just stay based in reality. And I think when I realized that, it was like a life-changing moment, honestly, So.
Yeah, I get that. And honestly, 15 minutes is going by really quick. Lauren and I could talk for hours, but there are, a couple questions that come through, and I want to make sure that we kind of acknowledge. We did have a question. It's like, you mentioned warm-ups are hard. Should senders try using a warm-up service?
Kent, I don't think they should, buddy. I think that too, but I think
so I wasn't going to call out any names, but
no, I think there's a difference between a warm-up like maybe you have a feature within your platform that kind of rate limits mail. So it lets people kind of like increase their volume day over day without them having to kind of cut those segments and things like that. So I think there are like automations that ESPs themselves could put in place to kind of make that easier for customers, or maybe there's a button within the platform that segments it for them, right? Whatever that looks like. But I think that's, these warm-up services tend to actually rely more on, we're going to send to a bunch of addresses that we own, and then we're going to be able to kind of engage with that mail and make sure that you get a really positive sender reputation. The problem is that's not your data. So as soon as you stop paying those folks, your reputation is going to go back to where it's supposed to be. So if your data's a problem, or if your sender reputation was a problem, you're going to get this little lift, but then you're not going to get it. You're going to drop, right? So I think that's
yeah. So another question, that we got is, there are a lot of things mentioned that my company is not doing right now. Which one should I focus on first? How do I go about implementing it?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, first of all, take a breath, right? I think a lot of ESPs have at least one or two kind of key features that are missing, or processes that are missing. So you're not alone in that at all. I think really what you need to do is kind of suss out what you've got, what you don't have, where are the biggest holes within your setup, right? Is that a product solution, such as maybe like working with your engineering team to build those missing features? Are you plugging in additional tooling? Like we've got, Socket Lab Spotlight, which is like an analytics tool. But basically, how are you improving your visibility? How are you making sure that these customers are kind of doing right by themselves and able to do things? And, do you have product solutions? If those aren't an option, you could also start by just like firming up your policies. Maybe you're working on getting buy-in from your company to enforce those policies if they kind of want you to overlook them for the biggest customers. So like there's lots of little ways you could do it. It's just a matter of where is the weak point within your program.
Yeah. Okay, one more question I think we have, and then we might have to wrap up because we're getting to that point. But we often don't know what some of our clients are uploading. How can we effectively help manage when they are using possibly a bad email list?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that a couple of different ESPs I've worked for have done is they've got sort of like a checker tool, like a internal one that basically, when somebody uploads a list, it gives them an idea of the quality of that list. So like, let's say if we've got, everybody has like this list of internal spam traps that you're monitoring, right? The ones that you kind of find, you can use those to be like, oh, look how many you have on your list. That's abnormal. Or look how many known hard bounces you have on your list. So I think you can kind of get that makeup internally just because you have so much data that's being sent through your platform every day. So that would be my best recommendation. But I think that's after the fact, if they've already sent to it and you didn't catch that, again, use the data, kind of point out to them, like, look at that, like your hard bounces are so high, but put it into context as well, because I think, for somebody who just is pushing send and their business is something completely unrelated to email or even technology, a 20% bounce rate is probably fine. Like they're like, oh, whatever, I hit 80% of my customers. That's great. We know that that's absolutely not fine, but we need to make that clear in a way that's not aggressive. It's actually just super helpful, right? So I think that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. Honestly, it's like, having some internal tools that sort of help you gauge where you sort of exist in a good, day, right? And if anytime you go outside of that, I mean, like to your point, you can have a little higher bounce rate, but you still have really great deliverability and super high engagement. I mean, that's a great factor, right? And so once you start looking at those details a little bit closer, then it can really help your clients. I think we're at time. I don't know, Abby, if you have anything else, or you want to add anything else?
Sorry guys. Actually,
principal's
20
back.
minutes
We're
there.
done.
I know you had so much to cover, but I think we covered a lot there, yeah.
Hopefully.
However, am I right in thinking there's going to be a follow-up blog to look out
I
for?
feel like there has to be. I mean, honestly, I have too many things in my mind that I need to get out.
Awesome.
It's gonna need an hour easily to do a webinar.
Yeah.
Amazing. As always, we will put the recording on YouTube minus the beginning bit. And yeah, just thank you again. It's been brilliant. And yeah, that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for joining,
Thank you.
everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.